All right, well, we got to go to break. Are we in trouble with breaks? We've talked for like an hour straight. We'll do a long one here. Ooh, as we go to break, Anthony, very sad news in the bowling world.
There's a bowling world?
Yeah. Dick Weber has passed on.
The famous bowler.
The famous
I
bowler.
even know that name.
Dick Weber, one of bowling's first national stars, leaves his mark as giant of the sport.
Leaves his mark.
He was 75 years old, Anthony. He died Sunday night in his sleep at his home in St. Louis. A cause of death was not immediately known. Dick Weber.
Split Carson never threw a gutter ball. Odd Couple.
Wow. You just quoted The Odd Couple? Are you insane? That's why, Dave! That's why! Who else comes up with that?
I'm insane.
Are you still wondering, Dave, as you're unemployed again? Or was he was working at that all-business station in Boston, but then the owner of the station killed himself?
Shot himself because he was going to be indicted on some charges of
Is Dave
insider
still working
trading.
there? Dave got fired from there, too. He went to an all-business station in Boston.
I got to check. I think they just got rid of the whole station. I don't even think it exists.
I really don't know. He might still be there, just miserable, just trying to figure out why his career never took off like
Did he get canned right before the guy committed suicide?
I think he was still there, but I think once the boss blows his brains out, I think the next guy coming in pretty much cleans house. You don't want anybody that this guy hired. He's a nut.
And it was an AM business day. And the signal was terrible. Like, you could barely hear it around Boston.
He was pretty much programming the stock ticker for radio.
Yeah.
It was all business. It was like Bloomberg here in New York, that station.
Even Bloomberg gives, like, news. This wasn't even that. This was a bad version of that. It was just, like, business.
Keep wondering, Dave. Keep wondering. Did you wonder when we were on CBS Sunday Morning?
Dave.
Were you still wondering, Dave?
Dave Dickless.
While they're talking to us on CBS Sunday Morning about indecency?
Built his whole career on Ozone's back, John Osterlin, the guy that had the relationship with the bands up there at AAF, built his whole career on that, on John's schmoozing of bands and record guys, and rode that. And then once John was gone, the guy's true colors shown. He was a nothing.
And by the
way,
excuse me. This has been wondered about in the radio business. You know, why we really turned on Dave Douglas. We never really respected him to begin with. That's a fact. And Dave knows that. I mean, we had the closed-door meetings, and his ideas were ridiculous, and we laughed at him. He wanted us to consider him the third member of the Opie and Anthony show.
Oh, he actually said that.
So we really had no respect for him. But you know, he, quote, was technically our boss, so we dealt with him, and what am I trying to say here? We try to keep out of each other's way.
We smiled
basically.
And nodded and did whatever we wanted.
Something we don't talk about often, because we really don't pat ourselves on the back on this show often, okay? But the reality is, when Anthony and I went to WAAF in Worcester, Massachusetts, we were the first radio show that made a real dent in the Boston ratings. Mm-hmm. I believe, someone can look it up, we were the first radio station to beat BCN. The first radio show to beat BCN. And at that point, BCN had to really, really acknowledge us for the first time. Because this AAF station has a bad signal. It was out in the suburbs. But we made such our mark that we really just put AAF at a whole nother level.
Put it on the map in Boston.
A whole nother level.
It was a Worcester station.
They were starting to get a lot more respect, bigger acts coming by, a real buzz about the radio station, and a lot of people do credit Anthony and I for doing that, okay? Yeah. And we don't really talk about it often, all right? So we move on to NEW after we messed up our careers there. And one of these rag magazines, radio rag magazines, this is exactly why, Dave, and I know you listen.
Dave.
They did a retrospect on WAAF, like a 25-year history or whatever it was, 30-year history of AAF. The highs, the lows, all about the station. How they started, what they've been doing, what they ended up becoming, some of the big names that worked at the joint. Anthony and I aren't mentioned in the entire thing.
Nothing.
And it's all about Dave. They're interviewing him like he was the guy that made this station so huge.
Oh yeah.
And the funny thing is, Dave pretty much, with the help of this Rag magazine, I forget if it was Friday Morning Quarterback or I forget which one. You know, it was a special issue.
Yep.
You know, he helped them put this thing out with old photos and information about this job.
Well, it was all Dave putting it together. It was pretty much the guy came in, Dave did the interviews and gave them all the material that they would need.
I'm on the Long Island Railroad, commuting into WNEW, reading this thing, just getting more and more just livid and pissed off.
And it wasn't like they weren't talking about any old jocks that were on there.
They talked about everybody. There was one mention of us, and it was because of Otto. Jesus, I almost forgot Otto's name. Who was the promotional guy there. And they asked Otto, because they were interviewing everybody. Do you have an example of a promotion that went wrong or something like that? And he goes, well, the time Opie and Anthony gave out the free turkeys.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, was illustrated in FHM last month.
Right.
That story. That was the only mention in the entire thing.
Yeah.
Didn't mention our CD that went on to sell close to 100,000 copies up there. Didn't mention the fact that we were the main force on the TV show that AF put out.
Beating BCN for the first time.
The ridiculous ratings we got in Afternoon Drive up there. Nothing. It was like we didn't. It was like we didn't exist.
Dave was responsible.
And
for
that was
station.
the day I said, you know what? I will just trash this guy until he finally does not do radio at all anymore.
Yep. Oh. I used to remember when I was writing him emails. Remember the fun we used to have in the office when I used to write emails? I used to get these email accounts with fake names and write Dave and Rocco and all them and just write and CC it to the GM. And yeah, Ben was doing the same thing. We'd CC it to the head of the whole division, the GM, and write how bad they were and how, you guys I'm an insider and you guys are so close to getting fired. They're bringing new people in. Come on, tell him because Dave has to know. I pounded this for months, and you know how bad it is to get a bad email?
Oh, yeah.
Now imagine getting one and it's also CC'd to your bosses. Oh, it was awful. We used to laugh our asses off.
And then what happened was, they lived off what we built for a few years, and then all of a sudden the whole thing collapsed. And then it came time to start pointing fingers like, whoa, what happened?
What happened?
And the reality was Anthony and I left.
Yep.
It really is the reality. And, then we get word that they're going to fire Dave. I took so much pleasure, Dave, in telling not the whole world, but like 20 cities that you were getting fired that day, and you had no idea.
Yep.
I broke the news to you.
That was great.
Because we knew before he did.
Gone. We should find the Dada Dave thing. That's a great example of how he used to...
we have Dada Dave somewhere, no?
Do we? How he used to treat us with his little phone calls during the show. He's right down the hall, and he would call us during commercials. He would call us up and go,
do you think we could steer away from the subject matter that you're discussing right now?
Oh, yeah, okay, Dave. Click. And then we just keep talking about it. He'd come in red-faced, veins popping out of his head. What? I thought you meant the other thing we were talking about, Dave. And whenever we would talk about, gay people, he would get really upset because he'd have to field the phone calls. And he'd come running in and just bash us about it. So we threw together a montage of real gay song with some of the clips from his phone calls. Yeah, really. He was so pissed off at that one, too. And I don't think we can find it.
No, because...
It wasn't on Cringe.
No, it was in our office when we were showing the door. I don't know if I have that anymore.
Wow,
what a shame.
That's legendary. We better have it somewhere.
Tell the listeners to email them.
Yeah, no, I know.